The movie I chose to watch and discuss is Patch Adams. This movie is classified as a comedy or drama, and it's about a man who tried to commit suicide, and he found himself as a patient in a mental hospital, where there he discovered that he was able to be set free of his own problems by helping other people and listening to their problems. Um, so Patch decided through this time that he wanted to help people through medicine and become a medical doctor. So he pursued that dream and that career. And throughout medical school, Patch had really good grades and focused a lot of his time, not on the grades though, but on the patient and caring for patients and helping them through their suffering. This film has a lot of different dynamics. It shows, the doctor-nurse relationships, the life of a medical student, the problems of patients, and how poorly sometimes medical professionals deal with those problems. So it was really interesting for me because I feel like I've got to see these things in all the levels. So Patch is obviously a different character. If you've seen the movie, but he really highlights how much we need to care for patients, and I think it shows, what when any nurse or doctor goes into medicine and wanting to help people, and he kind of has that heart. So the first person that Patch helps is this roommate he has. His name was Rudy, and he helps him go to the bathroom. So in this scene, this patient has hallucinations, visual hallucinations. Excuse me. And Patch plays into these hallucinations and helps him. And I thought it was interesting because in nursing school, that was one of the first things we were taught was don't play into patients, their hallucinations, reorient them. And it's kind of funny, but it's interesting because obviously I wouldn't do this in real life, but it just shows how much love and caring can go for a patient. So Patch goes to medical school, and they try to kick him out because he starts seeing patients as a first-year student instead of a third-year student. But the medical board, eventually sides with Patch because his grades are so good and because he has this relentless love to help people. So there's this scene where Patch joins the third-year medical students, and he's walking with the students and the attending, and the attending physician starts talking bluntly about this patient, her diabetes, and how it was untreated, and the diabetic ulcer she has, and how she's probably going to have an amputation, and you can tell the patient is learning all this information, almost overhearing it from this discussion with these other doctors, and she's very taken back by it and upset. And I can tell you, this scene just pretty much made me cringe because I've seen this before. See it a lot actually as in a teaching hospital that I work at. There's a lot of medical students, and it's done almost the exact same way. And as a nursing student, there was a lot of things done this way too, where you just go into a room and they start talking about the patient and pointing out things on their body and see this, this is pitting edema, and this is caused from heart failure, and it just used to break my heart because you just wonder, by the look on these patients' faces, have they heard this before, or are they, why are they so surprised? And you just, as a nurse now, I've learned, not to treat patients like that. Unfortunately, it still happens, and patients, they're people just like anybody else. They need to have the utmost respect and see love, be cared for with a loving face, a loving person who's not just telling people about their disease, but is concerned. So the movie's interesting also because you get to see a little bit how medicine has changed. In the movie they have, I mean, just the way that, that there's just patients lined up, just like in the pediatric wing, there's just, patients, pediatric patients just side by side, and it's kind of funny because, and it's not something we do now. We realize there's a lot more infections than what we realize, and you kind of separate patients. So there's this, you don't really see a lot of infection prevention, and there's also like these metal bedpans. So you wonder, did they use those back then? Like, if they're metal, you're not going to throw them away. So they probably sanitize them. I would hope, but and the beds are really small, so it's just kind of cool to see a medical setting in that back then, even if it is just a movie. I thought that was interesting. And I think the main point in the movie is how students and nurses, they kind of push this point that we're not focusing on the patient enough. There's this feeling like we got to carry out all these tasks and give these medications and hang antibiotics. I know for me in my job, that's a lot of it. But there's so much more of a patient needs than just medications. Patients, they enter the hospital with so many worries and concerns, and working, you just don't have, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of time to just sit and listen to every patient about, all their concerns and worries. And, at least at my job, if I take time to listen to my patients, I don't have time to document or get my medications done. It's just, I think that it shows kind of a problem in medicine where, we look at the tasks that need to be done and carried out as what's on paper. And there's a lot of things about being a nurse, being a doctor. You don't have a lot to write about on paper, I guess. There's no you can't check off a task, but you need to listen to patients and what they're saying and how they feel, because a lot of, there is a lot of connection between, our emotions and our, and laughter, like it shows in the movie, to thebeing well and to being healthy. We don't have enough time to teach patients about their medications because, there's so much going on. There's so much on nurses to get things done. So I thought it was cool just where it showed just how much we need to pay more attention to our patients and their needs and what they're saying, and not just, do our tasks. So another thing I thought was interesting, my last point, I guess, is that, this film, it shows a lot about how patients and their needs, and people need people, I guess, and that's kind of the point through the movie, is that, it even Patch says, death isn't so bad, and we need to laugh and we need to enjoy life. So I try to, in my practice, I can see where this is a really great movie, but to me it's not, it's missing something, and that's, we need to point patients to Jesus, because ultimately, we can't heal their brokenness, we can't heal their diseases, but He can. And I think we take that out because we don't know patients and their religious backgrounds. We're afraid to offend anyone. But it's so important. There's, in some ways, there's nowhere else where people are more broken than in the hospital. I mean, if you really listen to patients, they've got all the kinds of stuff going on at home, because they're in the hospital taking care of their problems, and they've got medical expenses they're worried about. They've got a whole family at home. They've got pets at home that they're concerned about. And, they're not at peace. They're not able to really heal and get better because they're stressed and they're worried. And, ultimately, Jesus is the only one that can fix that and can give them peace in that time. And I just always try to pray with my patients and point them to God, because that's really the only thing that's going to heal them. I think that's something that's not mentioned in the film and not really mentioned in today's world, and that's just kind of my perspective on it. Um, because I found that when I do pray with patients, I do get this sense of peace, and not because of me, but because of, what God can do. Um, so I really enjoyed this film, and liked, the perspective it brought. Um, so I hope if you get a chance to watch the film that you can kind of see the things I was talking about and enjoy it too. Thanks.